There it is. You gotta take it
Hello, everyone. If I can get your attention. Everybody? Okay. Hi, I want to welcome you to the Omaha Press Club. My name is Bridget Whitey-Brooks, and I am president of the Omaha Press Club Board and chair of the OPC Membership and Marketing Committee. Well, the Press Club is a membership organization. I want to let you know you do not have to be a journalist or member of the press in order to join the club. You can contact any of your servers, and we also have membership packets available at the check-in table for you if you're interested in becoming a member. I want to thank you all for coming here tonight for what is sure to be a great event, and I want to go ahead and get started here, so let's get the party started.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alan Bone, and I will be your MC tonight. First thing, I'm told that we need to follow Press Club protocol and recognize the faces on the barroom floor that are already here tonight and have already been subjected to this process. Mike Kelly of the Omaha World Herald, right back here. And former Nebraska Secretary of State, now President of the Nebraska Press Association, Alan Bierman, is here somewhere. Remember when this event used to be kind of a big deal? It used to mean something? When we were growing up, it was kind of an honor reserved for true legends. You know, Bob Devaney and Jim Exon and Bob Gibson, Gerald Ford, Johnny Carson. Now this. Word on the street is that in the selection process for this honor, Joel's barely beat out Travis Justice and that girl who was on Teen Mom. I'm not really sure how I ended up in this position. Joel called me about 2 months ago and said, "Hey, would you speak at this roast, be one of the roasters?" And I said, "Sure." I was kind of honored. Next thing I know, I'm MC of the deal. This is the quintessential Joel Sartore experience. He lures you in with a seemingly innocuous request, and the next thing you know, you're trading your car for a Coke machine and a baseball autograph by Fidel Castro, or you're letting him pull up your wood floors of your church for 25 bucks. I'm told the Press Club was a little surprised by the size of the turnout tonight, but I'm not really sure why, because there are a lot of us who waited a long time to talk about Joel in a setting where he cannot talk back. Frankly, a lot of the things you're going to hear tonight are things most of us figured we'd only be saying in a courtroom. If I can get this to work here. 3 seconds, is that right?
Yeah.
There we go. I first met Joel in 1970 when we were in Miss Sprinkle's 3rd grade class at Seymour Elementary. I was in Raost. Now, for those of you who are bad at math, that was over 40 years ago. Growing up with a friend like Joel meant there was never a shortage of conversation when he was around, whether you liked it or not. See, Joel has always had this knack for needling people in a way that might have resulted in homicide had the needling come from anybody else. He was relentless, and nothing was off limits. Your mother, girls you were dating, girls you had dated, girls you wanted to date, stupid things you had done. Joel seemingly had a Rolodex full of these things all in his head that he could pull up in a moment's notice. And the ridiculous part is that as he was doing it, you were laughing uncontrollably and begging for mercy at the same time. I think he mostly enjoys saying things just to witness the reaction. One time when we hadn't seen each other in a year or so, we got together, and the first thing out of your mouth, first thing out of his mouth, I'm not making this up, is, "So Alan, how's your mom? Is she still whoring?" I should just mention that my mom has never at any point whored. But Joel just stood there with that kind of shit-eating grin on his face. That's the one. And while we're on the topic of mothers, no one has endured more relentless needling than Joel's mother, Sharon. Let's have a moment of silence for that poor woman. She is here tonight, and I would point her out, but hasn't she really been through enough? While most of us were working part-time jobs in high school where we had to punch a clock, Joel was pretty much managed to avoid that trap. To this day, he's the only person I know who has made his way through high school working as a freelance fish tank cleaner. Now, like many of you, I've discovered that Joel has a number of what we call in education distinguishing characteristics. One of them is he is legendarily cheap. Now, this is a man who takes extra napkins every time he goes to a fast food restaurant so he doesn't have to buy them for the house. Joel will spend money, however, but for odd reasons. For instance, he is the only person I know who has bought a mansion out of spite. As many of you know, Joel lives in a historic home in Lincoln, one that he and Kathy have renovated from a crumbling, overgrown mess into a fully restored showplace. What you may not know, and I am not making this part up either, is that Joel bought the house at an auction, spurred mainly by the fact that the real estate agent kind of had a snooty attitude toward him when he asked about the property. "I didn't like the way she looked at me," he told me later, "so I bought it out of spite." On the topic of Kathy, let's just say this woman is a saint, and I don't just mean figuratively. If you look up the criteria for canonization, you've got suffering, forbearance, and at least one miracle. No sane person that I know would argue that 30 years of living with Joel doesn't constitute all three. Kathy makes Joan of Arc look like Paris Hilton. It's a little ironic that Mark Quandle and I were the ones in journalism class in high school, and Joel never set foot in the J room. I ended up teaching English, Mark ended up as an attorney, and Joel is the one who ended up in National Geographic and on CBS Sunday Morning. If you knew Joel in high school, there were only two connections you expected to have with Joel and National Geographic. One was as the subject of a feature on abnormal psychology, or two, as an expert on all the geographic issues that contain naked women's breasts. And Joel, at the risk of going all Don Rickles on your ass here, you're aware that the age of the typical CBS This Morning viewer is 92, right? Most of the people who are watching that show are there because that's where the nurse left them. And most of those people are just thinking about Betty White or waiting for Andy Rooney to show up on the screen. It's good to see your parents are here, though. Counseling seems to have helped. Your mom isn't wearing the veil any further. But thanks to this little event and the surrounding publicity, they're no longer able to tell people Paul is their only child. I think I'll stop there. We have a lot of people to speak, and I don't want to get in the way of other people who have to get their revenge. So I want to bring up another friend of mine from high school, an attorney and bigwig in the Republican Party, Mr. Mark Wandel.
Thank you, Alan, and thanks everybody for being here. My portion of the program I entitled, Mark Quandall, Childhood Friend. That's kind of nice. Next up, Joel Sartore, and it says the early years. And so I first came to the acquaintance of Joel when we were in the 7th grade. And that was at the beautiful Raost Middle School. Yeah, exactly. But we were fellow prisoners at Raost Middle School. And that's where, actually in 7th grade, we were in a science class, and this is where I first met him. And Joel talked me and all the other boys in class to get up and whistle the theme from the River Kwai and march out of the room. And, you know, that would have been funny if it just happened once, but we did it every day. We go into the science room over to the lab whistling that thing. So, and that's actually true. So, oops, I went back. Right, a little fat. Right there. That's Joel in junior high school. If you notice, he was a homely kid. The picture that Alan put up earlier, he actually started off as kind of a cute kid, but by this time you see his hair is kind of unruly and he's got that kind of cheesy smile. But that's just the way it is. But one of the great things about having Joel as a friend, as a childhood friend, is, and that's where that next picture comes up. This is Ralphie. And I don't know if you remember that story, but Joel actually was always my backup. Whenever I got in trouble, you know, my mother would say, "Where did you learn that word?" I'd say, "Joel Sartore." And my mother, and this is true, she's like, "Oh, that Joel Sartore! No! You don't spend any time with that kid." But I kept doing that. But, you know, where did you learn that? Joel Sartore. And the thing is that he is a credible suspect because for the most part, it was true. And I found it, you know, true to this day.